Alright, hello and welcome everybody back to another video. I'm your Sim CFI, which means I'm your flight instructor for any similar purposes. Questions on Microsoft P3 or DCS, please leave a comment down below, and I'll be sure to answer best I can. In saying that, I'm also a real-world airline pilot, fly the CRJ 900, so if you have questions on the RJ or becoming a pilot in general, leave the comment down below and I'll be sure to answer it the best I can. I don't think I can talk today, but today hopefully we're going to get you to learn how to fly the River Visual into runway 19 in a Reagan's DC or DCA airport. So this approach, a lot of people wanted me to make a video or tutorial on it. I'll say that it's not as hard as it looks, but it can go sideways quite quickly if you're not paying attention. So what we're going to break this down into is there's two portions of this approach. Let me bring the chart up for you. This is the Washington DC River Visual runway 19. This is first off, it's a visual approach. Okay, no localizer, no glide path, no missed approach instructions, no hard altitudes that you have to be at. This is a recommended altitude, not a you have to be 900. It's a visual approach. It's a lot of TLAR involved. TLAR is that looks about right. And with more experience flying the aircraft, either in the sim or in real life, the better your TLAR gets. Obviously, we want to stay away from the prohibited airspace. Over here in 66A and 56B, and to do that we're going to start with breaking up this into two segments. Like I said, there's a lateral portion to this approach and there's a vertical profile to this approach. The lateral profile is the simplest of a visual approach, and that is stay over the blue, stay over the water as best you can. If you have really high winds, you're going to have to fight the winds to stay over the water. You want to track over the water. Doesn't matter where your nose is pointed. You want to be over the water. That's the lateral portion. That's it. Done. The vertical the vertical portion is slightly bit more complex than the blue one, but I'll show you that it's not too bad. Let's get a marker out here. Sure. And so the lateral portion, as you saw, was just fly the river, right? Vertical composition. Okay, so as you saw, the lateral portion is simply following the river. Vertical portion, you're going to try your best to make it a 3-degree glide slope. So these are all the recommended altitudes: 3,000 feet, 1,800 feet by the chain bridge, 1,500 feet. These all have distances co-located with them as well. So if we take a standard 3-degree glide slope, all right, pretend that's 3 degrees. There we go. How much feet per mile do we cover on a 3-degree glide slope? Well, the answer to that is we cover 300 feet per nautical mile. So if you extended this line out, pretend it's just a regular ILS glide slope. If you extended this out to 10 miles, you should start this approach at 3,000 feet. And then coming at 5 miles, you'd be at half of this, 1,500 feet. Around 3 miles, you'd be around 900 feet. Now take a look at the chart. This is just simple math. It's 300 feet per mile as you bring it down. 3,000 feet, 1,500 feet, 900 feet. These altitudes are coming back, as you can see. So if you can plan to be at 10 nautical miles, roughly 3,000 feet, they're all rough numbers. Again, it's a visual approach. It doesn't have to be 3,000, roughly. At 5 miles, roughly 1,500 feet, and I'll preface this with above ground, AGL, so radar altimeter, you'll be using it here. Roughly 3 miles, 900 feet, and you should see the PAPIs by this point to guide you the rest of the way in. So you can do this either with FMS navigation. You can do this while having the DCA VOR tune, which is a preferred method as well. And nowadays, they just made this brand new approach called the RNAV Yankee into 19, which allows CRJs like us to go in there without RMP. Before it was just an RMP approach and an LDA or a visual. Now we have the RNAV the Yankee, which is not RMP, and we can fly this approach. So taking a quick look at this, Derek is 2,700 feet at 8.6 miles. That's pretty close to our little rough calculation, right? Add a mile to this is 9.6. That brings you up to 8.9. That brings you to 3,000 feet. Pretty close to 10 miles at 3, right? Those rough numbers. So you can follow this as well as a as kind of a background to your visual approach, if that helps you. So take a look at Rourke, 1,500 feet at 4.4 miles from the airport. We said 1,500 feet at 5 miles, pretty close. So you can use these rough numbers to help you out. Let's go ahead and put that chart away. Another thing what we're going to do here is we're on the start of the visual approach. We have the river in sight. It's going to wind to the left, it's going to wind to the right, and then into the approach. Do not land straight ahead into runway 15. You'll have a bad day with that short runway there. But what we're going to do is we're going to do our best to stay tracking over the water. And for this video, I'm going to crank up the wind so you guys can see how we're going to do that. So let's crank it up here. Wind. Let's make it like, well, maybe not that much. Well, a good 22 knots in there. Okay, so we'll show you how we're going to play that wind. And lastly, before we get going, we're going to make the VOR. We're going to do the DCA VOR, which is 1110, and we're going to go to green needle. Alright guys, so we're just paused with, I put the DCA chart up at the top left so you guys can keep an eye on it. We're starting from right here, roughly past Derek at roughly 2,600 feet, and I put in the DCA, I can't show you there, but the DCA VOR of 1110 on both sides, and we're in green needle navigation, so we have the mileage. I don't really care about the course too much. It should be set to 191, the runway heading, but it doesn't really matter for us today. But the mileage is what we count, is what we want. So remember, we want 5 miles, roughly 1,500 feet. So we have 1,000 feet to lose in 2 miles. So let's get working on it. I'm going to unpause. I've cranked up the wind from the left. It'll be around 20 to 30 knots or so. So I'll show you how much we're going to be playing this wind. This wind is going to be pushing us this way. Okay. And lastly, I don't think I can do it in a pause. Yeah, I won't be able to do it in the pause situation here. I wonder if I can do it like this, though. No. But what we would do is go to the fixed page, and we would type in Pilvia. Let me do it while unpaused here, and I'll just respawn myself. Pilvia. Oh, there's a 3 there. Pilvia. And we'll do 1 mile, and I'm going to pause. 1 mile. Okay, it's not allowing me to do that. It should allow me to do 1 mile, though. Anyways, the Pilvia fix is the White House restricted airspace. We set that in real life. It works usually. I don't know why it doesn't work today, but we would have that set up as a little reminder to not go into the airspace over there. Let's see how our jet's doing. We're going to get this back on course from out of this pause, and we're going to stay over the river. Remember, the wind's pushing us this way, so we're going to have to steer into that wind a little bit more than you would think, all right? And play that wind. Go back the chair here. Okay, we're going to unpause. And let's get this under control. So we're going to stay over the river. Let's go turn into the river here. And we're going to get back into our approach speed. Something to keep in mind, guys, is you want to be configured early. You want to be gear down, flap 45, reversers armed, all that kind of good stuff. You want to be doing that early rather than later. I'm going to zoom into this PFD so you can see it. We're just approaching 5.8 miles. We got to lose a couple more 100 feet here. And radar altimeter wise, we're at 1,500, so we're actually doing pretty decent. We're actually a little high on the approach, so I'm going to add a bit of thrust. Not completely level off, but we'll just reduce my rate of descent of 700 feet per minute to 500 feet per minute. You know what? Let me pause, actually. I didn't mention that to you guys. We'll talk about this very quickly. We talked about 3-degree descent, how much feet per mile you use, but we didn't talk about how to calculate a descent rate. So the easiest way to calculate a descent rate in the air when you're just on the fly, you got to do it quickly, is take your ground speed, cut it in half, and add a 0. You'll notice our ground speed right now is 100 knot, which is really slow, but it's 100 knot ground speed. So we'll take 100, right, divide it by 2, equals 50. All right, 50 plus 0 at the end of it, obviously, would be 500 feet per minute. So 500 feet per minute is what's roughly going to keep me on the fake 3-degree glide slope that we're using. So we're at 1,400 feet at 5 miles. We're a tiny bit low on the approach, is what I meant to say earlier. So 500 is going to keep me on it. Let's do maybe 3 to 400 feet per minute until we get back somewhere on the slope. So we're going to check back at 3 miles, which should be roughly 900 feet, and then we'll get back to that. Now, that feet per minute will change when we turn, but we'll be visual with the pappies in the runway by that point. But if you ever need a quick feet per minute on a 3 degrees, doesn't work if it's a 3.1 or a 4 or whatever, but on a 3 degree, take your ground speed, cut it in half, add a 0. All right, so we're going to unpause this there. We are using FS Realistics as well for some shaking effects and stuff. So let's add a bit of thrust and a tiny bit of nose up. We'll get back to about 300 feet a minute or so. Okay, and we're going to stay over the river. So it means I can delay my turn because this headwind is going to be pushing me that way. All right, so I can delay my turn here into that river. We want to stay over this water the entire time as best we can. Okay, we'll start this turn here. Okay, we're going back to 500 feet a minute roughly. It's okay if you're not completely on the numbers. It's a visual approach, so you won't have to do the most precise. Just stay over the water. That's the main part, is staying over the water. And look how slow we're going. The tendency here, you might think you're too slow. It's just because we have a super high wind right now that's keeping our ground speeds quite low. So I'm going to delay this turn a little bit. We're at 3 miles at 1,100 feet. Pretty good. As we roll the airplane, you cut your lift in half a little bit. Not in half, but you cut your lift a little bit. So be sure to increase a little bit of thrust and increase a little bit of nose up to keep that 600 to 600 feet a minute or whatever you're trying to get. If you don't, you're going to descend a bit steeper than you may intended or wanted. 500 feet per minute. You guys got to remember that we have a pretty strong headwind from the nose, so we can delay this turn a little bit. I usually tell you to start this turn a little earlier than later, but with this headwind, I can delay it because it's going to be holding us back with our ground speed right there, and the wind is gusting a little bit. We're going to start this turn. All right, just a very nice shallow turn. If we need more, we can add more. We don't want to leave it to the last minute, because if you leave it to the last minute, you can't turn more than 30-degree bank without being a steep turn consideration there. Work on our thrust, work on our yoke. We're going to crab into the wind. The wind's from the left-hand side, so we're going to drive into that wind. A little bit of a gust there. Correct our speed.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Reverse, get that nose down, and we'll start applying the brakes. Holding our left yoke aileron, the left aileron into the wind, and some right rudder to keep us on the center. 90 knots. Go ahead and install the reverses. We'll take this exit here. And that's the visual into DCA. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Again, it's not a hard approach, but things can get out of hand quickly if you don't watch the wind. The wind can play a very big factor on if you stay over the river or not, and when to time that turn to go on the landing. If you have a super strong headwind, you can delay it a tiny bit. Maybe start it, just don't go full, bank angle on it. But if you have no wind, I would start it earlier than later, just so you can always add bank angle. You can reduce bank angle if the turn was too steep to begin with, rather than starting the turn too late and having to add more and more and more, and then you can't add any more until you blow through the runway. So I did get a replay of that. Let's go ahead and watch the landing.